Welcome to FYI, the For-Your Innovation podcast. This show offers an intellectual discussion on technologically enabled disruption, because investing in innovation starts with understanding it. To learn more, visit arc-invest.com.
ARC Invest is a registered investment advisor focused on investing in disruptive innovation. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. It does not constitute, either explicitly or implicitly, any provision of services or products by ARC. All statements made regarding companies or securities are strictly beliefs and points of view held by ARC or podcast guests and are not endorsements or recommendations by ARC to buy, sell, or hold any security. Clients of ARC Investment Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of FYI. My name is Grous. I'm an associate portfolio manager at ARC, and I also work on the next generation internet strategy covering digital entertainment. I'm also joined today by Andrew Kim.
Hi, everyone. I'm a research associate for the next generation internet strategy, working closely under Nick and Will Summerlin. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So today we are going to be walking through our open source model and blog on Roku. And in that discussion, we'll cover both the top-down and bottom-up analysis that went into it. And just to get right into this, we believe that Roku, as the only purpose-built operating system for TVs, is going to be a prime beneficiary of the shift from linear to connected TV. And it's going to be able to monetize both content and ad inventory as more viewers and ad dollars shift from linear, which is really considered cable and broadcast, into the streaming ecosystem. So all of the ad dollars that flow into streaming services, as well as being able to monetize off of taking a subscription fee for signing up for services like Netflix and HBO Max that don't offer advertising. But what we're currently seeing is actually a lot of these services are offering two types of tiers, one ad-free and one ad-supported. And both of those opportunities is something that Roku, as an operating system, so really as the platform for TVs and streaming services, can take advantage of. Really, the way that we think about Roku in this new digital TV ecosystem is as the new cable box. And so to give an example, or to give this analogy, really what we're seeing is this shift from the cable box and cable companies being the gatekeepers of content and services on TV. And now what we're seeing is operating systems like Roku, Fire TV, Chromecast operating in that same sense. So having a very important role to play in how the streaming services are being able to distribute their content to the broader audience and to all of the TVs out there that are connected to the streaming ecosystem. And we think that this is going to be a very, very, very important role. So to set the stage and give you some figures around, how big this opportunity can be, we think it's important, and really on the top-down point of view, to focus on two figures or two buckets of focus for us. One is viewers, and the other is ad dollars. And what we've historically seen, especially within the digital advertising or just advertising space in general, is what happens as we have new platforms emerge and new entertainment types emerge, we actually see viewers go first and ad dollars go second. And so currently what we're seeing is viewers are shifting over to connected and streaming, but the ad dollars have yet to catch up. And so to put this into some figures for you, linear TV today commands in the US, around 72 million households. So there's still 72 million households either connected to cable or broadcast. We think that's going to drop to around 49 million households in the coming 5 years. Whereas connected TV, and understandably so, there is some overlap here in terms of households having access to both linear and streaming. But connected TV is actually higher today at 108 million households, growing to roughly 149 million households in the US. Understandably so, this is actually not just a US phenomenon. We actually think the global TAM should really be looked at on a broadband level. So the number of houses globally that have access to broadband or internet. And that stands at around 1.2 billion today. So we're talking about a massive opportunity. And so we've already seen this shift in terms of viewers. And actually, to quote the CEO of Roku, Anthony Wood. In the US audiences spend roughly 46% of their time on streaming, while advertisers spend only 18% of their TV ad budgets on streaming. So again, there's this mismatch in terms of dollars spent and engagement. And that's a really exciting opportunity for companies like Roku. To broaden it out a bit, if you were to look at not just TV ad budgets, but total ad budgets, digital TV ad spending, so the amount of dollars spent in the streaming space and connected TV space, is only around 6%. So a little bit lower than that 18% of TV ad budgets when you look at it on a total advertising budget basis. That's compared to around 23% for the amount of ad dollars still spent in the linear TV space in the US. And so to think about these opportunities on a broader basis, if you were to look at the global amount of dollars spent for linear TV, it actually stands at around $169 billion. In the US, it's around $66 billion. And we see both of those figures declining. Globally, we see it dropping around 4% annually to around $138 billion by 2026. And in the US, we think that 66 billion can drop to around 49 billion, so a negative 6% CAGR over time. And so those dollars are actually shifting into this connected TV ad space where Roku is the number one streaming TV platform by hours in the US, Canada, and Mexico. So again, we're talking about a global story, not just a story about the US TV market. Although it is the biggest, we think it is actually foreshadowing what's going to be seen and witnessed globally as more and more households globally adopt streaming services and connected TVs. So we think Roku is very well positioned to be able to build on the success that they've had in the US and expand globally, which is what they've done in both Canada and Mexico. They operate in the UK and Germany, and we think they're going to continue to expand as this is, again, a global story of entertainment. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Andrew, and we'll go back and forth in terms of some of the figures and really some of the key drivers of this model.
Thank you, Nick. Although you'll see in our open source model and companion piece that we employ many variables to communicate our conviction in each of Roku's business segments, we believe that our assumptions for three key variables are the primary factors in our evaluation outcomes. In order for our thesis to crystallize, Roku should exhibit strong active account growth through the next 5 years. Active accounts refer to all accounts that have streamed content via Roku in the last 30 days until reporting. Given our high conviction in Roku's potential execution in both international expansion, as outlined by Nick, and content diversification via more partnerships and in-house production, we believe in our base case that Roku can grow its active accounts from 61 million as of the first fiscal quarter of 2022 to 157 million in 2026 at a compound annual rate of 23%.
I just want to put that figure into perspective in terms of 156 million households. Again, we're talking about at the end state in 2026, around 100 or 1.2 billion households having access globally to CTVs. So you're talking about only a fraction of the market. So even in our base case, when you look at the global market, we're not talking about Roku having greater than 50% share of the market. We're actually talking about it just really maintaining and slightly increasing that share in which we look at it on a global level.
Right, which is quite conservative, given I believe eMarketer kind of assessed that Roku already has around 50% share in the US alone as of the end of 2021. But yeah, so we think it's pretty conservative on our part. In our bear and bull cases, we forecast Roku to increase active accounts to 117 million and 186 million active accounts at compound annual rates of 16% and 27%. Second, we believe Roku must also increase engagement per account over the next 5 years. So we view our variable forecasting the daily hours streamed on Roku per active account as also a critical driver of the model. We know from Nielsen and eMarketer that US adults spent on average between 3 and 4 hours a day watching linear TV throughout the past few years. We estimate that the average Roku active account in 2021 streamed 3.6 hours of content per day. Note that this is not an apples to apples comparison, given that Nielsen and eMarketer estimate viewing time on a per person basis, whereas Roku accounts are often shared by more than one person, making it a better proxy for households rather than for an individual. So, if anything, we believe that Roku's daily hours streamed per active account metric has a lot of room to grow, since it is comparable to a per person metric at the moment. We forecast in our base case for average daily hours on Roku to grow at a 5% compound annual rate from 3.6 hours a day in 2021 to 4.5 hours in 2026. And we project 4 hours a day in our bear case and 4.8 hours in our bull case.
I think there's, important ways to break down this time, just given the depth of Roku's business model. And I think this is probably a good time to touch on that in terms of, the different revenue drivers within advertising for Roku. So Roku monetizes via third-party advertisements. So different services will allocate roughly 30% of their ad load to Roku, and then Roku gets to monetize that 30% of that advertising time. There's also first party advertising, and Andrew, I'm sure you have a lot of points on this in terms of the Roku channel itself, which is actually a top 5 channel on the Roku platform in the US by reach and engagement. So that's going to be first party advertisements. They control 100% of that ad stack and 100% of that ad load because that's their channel. They determine what content you see on there. And then you also have the OneView platform, which I'll let you touch on, Andrew, as well as display advertisings. So there's a few different ways that Roku actually drives revenue dollars within this broader advertising ecosystem.
Right, right. So I guess just stepping a little bit back and looking at all of ad-supported viewing time as a whole, that brings us to our third most important variable. So while Roku can still monetize on its user base's activities within subscription-based video on demand platforms, we think that the larger opportunity, as Nick outlined, is in Roku's potential monetization in the rise of advertising-based video on demand platforms. Roku's ability to command ad revenues, of course, depends on to what extent users stream ad-supported content as opposed to subscription-based content. And we estimate that in 2021, approximately 15% of total hours streamed on Roku was allocated to third-party app-based content platforms such as YouTube and Hulu, whereas another 10% was allocated to Roku's first-party ad-based content platform called the Roku Channel. We also include content whose video ad inventory was transacted on through Roku's ad platform OneView into that percentage. Thus, in total, we estimate in 2021 approximately 25% of total viewing time was attributable to ad-based content. We believe that this contribution can increase due to two catalysts. First, we believe viewing of first-party ad-based content will increase as Roku continues to invest in the Roku channel through more premium subscription partnerships and investment in original content pipelines. Second, we believe more high-quality subscription-based streaming services such as Netflix, Disney, HBO Max will all offer a free ad-supported tier, exposing viewers to more ad-based content through the next 5 years. Through these catalysts, we think that the percent of hours streamed on ad-supported content will increase to 35% of total hours streamed in our base case, whereas we forecast this percentage to be 28% and 43% in our bear and bull cases, respectively.
Yeah, and I want to elaborate a little bit further on, this increasing amount of advertising supply that's coming online into the streaming space. And we should touch on this further because I don't think we touch on it enough in the blog. But just understanding, the discrepancy between the ad dollars still in the linear TV space and in the streaming space, and what's really holding back a large majority of those ad dollars is actually the fact that you haven't seen, at least in the US, the large sports flow over to the streaming space. We've had a few of the sports leagues, so the MLB, the NFL, the NHL and the NBA sign smaller contracts with streaming services like Hulu and Apple and a few of these, and Amazon being one with the NFL. And we've seen, them take one or two games or, a portion of the season and be able to, show those games in streaming, or stream those games to viewers, I should say. But what we haven't seen is one of these leagues fully sign on with one of these streaming services. And so, really, live sports has been and continues to be a linchpin, really holding the linear TV ad space together, because that's where a lot of advertising dollars flow. And even though we're starting to see, as Andrew pointed out, a lot of these services offer two different types of tiers, and we're seeing increased advertising supply come on in terms of the slots where you can advertise. What we think will be a really big accelerator for the space is as we get more and more live sports to flow over to the streaming space. We think that could happen within the next 5 years. We're starting to see these early signs where you've had the NFL sign on with Amazon, the MLB just signed a package with Apple. And so you're starting to see incremental progress in this space. But that's going to, when that happens, when one or two of these leagues sign a full year license with a streaming service, that's really going to be when the floodgates open and a ton of ad dollars flow over into the space. I should also add, in terms of how this ecosystem works. In the TV space, you have something called the upfronts, and this is a few months during which advertisers and broadcast companies and cable companies and broadcast channels come together, and they actually, and this is something that is changing now with streaming and being able to personalize advertisements to different households. And we really haven't even gotten into that, and how the streaming ecosystem, the advertising ecosystem for connected TV is highly efficient compared to what we currently see in the linear TV space. If you have 50 million households and you're broadcasting the Super Bowl, all of those households typically see the same advertisements. What we're going to see created in the streaming space is something that's more akin to what you're used to on social media, meaning that all of your advertisements are personalized given the first party data that these companies like Roku are able to collect. So you're going to see a highly efficient market evolve around the connected TV space, something that linear has never and will never be able to match, just given the way that the content is broadcast to users. So I think those are really important distinctions as we continue to talk about this advertising space, because it really, as Andrew is pointing out, it is a very large portion of why we're so excited about Roku, why we think the opportunity can be so big. It's because they have access to all of this new ad inventory that's flowing over into a space that's highly efficient compared to linear. And so we actually think on a global TAM basis, it's more important, and I threw out a few of these statistics before around the ad dollars that have been in linear TV, $169 billion today globally, 66 billion linear in the US for linear TV. But if you look at what is spent in the digital space, so you're talking about social media companies, Google, Amazon, these types of services, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. So really what we should be looking at for Roku and these operating systems that have been built on digital rails is the global digital ad spend. And today, that's at around $430 billion. And we believe that's going to 850 billion by 2026. So that's a 14% compound annual growth rate versus that negative 4% compound annual growth rate, which is what we believe will happen in the global linear TV space. So again, you're shifting dollars to the digital ad space. In the US, again, you're talking about very large figures. The US digital ad space is around $179 billion, and that's going to around $413 billion. So almost 50% of that global spend. And that's around 18% compound annual growth rate. And so we want to give those figures to you to help you understand how we're looking at this opportunity. Again, we're talking about a billion plus potential households, and we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars worth of digital ad spend that can all make its way into the connected TV space. And we hear it time and time and again from companies like Roku, from companies like the Trade Desk that operate in this connected TV ad space, talking about this massive opportunity at hand because it's so undertapped and it's significantly better than what TV advertisers are used to today, which is just linear broadcast, linear advertisements. It's almost, I would say, a hockey stick like improvement versus the TV ad space for today. So just yeah, I wanted to add that tidbit there, and I'll hand it back to you now, Andrew.
Sure, yeah. Just going back to what you mentioned on sports rights and then efficiency, just going back to sports rights, someone very closely involved in our research ecosystem last week, she reminded us that now out of the top 100 channels on linear TV, 95 of them are sports related, right? So, I mean, Nick has already mentioned this, but it just, that just shows how much attention there is on sports right now. And it kind of substantiates why big tech is throwing all this money around just to secure something out of there. And a lot of advertisers, as listeners might know, always mention total domination of sports as essentially the final nail in the coffin for linear TV. So we'll just have to see how that evolves over the next couple of years. And on your second note on efficiency, I think a lot of the criticisms that we sometimes get talking about the ad opportunity for CTV is saying, well, linear TV targets demographics pretty well right now, and that's why ad dollars haven't moved. But I think what's important to realize is that CTV targeting can only get better from here, whereas linear cannot, right? Because at the end of the day, you are limited to targeting the household. Whereas with Roku, you already have account information filled in. So you have at least one representative of the household. And you also have total visibility over what is being viewed across the entire Roku ecosystem, hopping from Netflix to YouTube to the Roku channel. We would like to, just remind listeners that CTV ad targeting is just getting started in terms of efficiency improvements and ROI increases. But yeah, just moving a little more broad-based. Finally, we want to highlight how we are looking at Roku's business opportunity from a bird's eye view, and that is through our calculations of Roku's gross platform monetization rate. It's a handful. Yeah. This rate refers to our estimate of total transaction volume or revenue facilitated by Roku before applying Roku's respective take rates for each business line, all divided by our estimate of total aggregate hours streamed by all Roku active accounts. So this metrics essentially serves to illustrate how much business activity Roku can capture as its total addressable market grows. We compare this metric to our estimate of linear TV's indirect monetization rate, which refers to our estimates for total linear TV ad spend divided by our estimate for the total aggregate hours of linear TV watched by all attributable US households. We calculate that the 2015 to 2017 average of linear TV indirect monetization as approximately 25 cents per hour, nearly twice that of Roku's gross platform monetization rate in 2021 of approximately 13 cents per hour. We simply suggest that Roku's gross platform monetization rate can approach, lag, or exceed linear TV's historical indirect monetization rate of 25 cents in our base, bear, and bull cases, respectively. And please note that this metric is an output, not an input, but we believe it serves as an important sanity check as we note Roku's significant potential for growth with respect to the sheer size and monetization rates of linear TV. So I guess we can conclude regarding Roku's primary drivers there. But for more information, we encourage listeners to check out our open source model and companion piece found on our website, arc-invest.com. And I can revert back to Nick if there are any more concluding remarks.
Yeah, I want to end on just one last piece here. And this is what we're not factoring into this current model. And this focuses on Roku Pay and direct commerce. And so actually, this is a relatively recent development for Roku. It's something that they've hinted about. Roku Pay itself has been a part of the ecosystem for quite a while. Roku Pay is kind of the native payments platform that exists within Roku. So for those that are listening and watching that don't have a Roku account, when you sign on, you put in your credit card information, debit card information, so that you have a seamless transaction when you go to sign up for a Netflix or an HBO. It's actually all managed natively within the Roku ecosystem. And so for Roku, they're now taking this, digitally native wallet, and they're going to expand this and offer. They're actually currently working with Walmart, and they're going to offer a type of TV e-commerce. So the company will sell ads in which users can use Roku Pay to purchase products from Walmart. So this is something, if have studied the TV ecosystem, this has been a dream for the TV space, really since the inception of the television. This has always kind of been the dream of, let's be able to directly sell products to consumers. And you have countless examples of channels that do this. QVC, you're talking about a long history of being able to sell directly to viewers via the television. What you haven't had is this kind of next step in terms of one-click shopping, or one-click checkout. So you can imagine working with Walmart. Roku already has your account information. They know where you live. They have your shipping address, billing address. Walmart advertises, a new product to you. It's something you want to purchase. And you have your remote or your phone, which you can use as a remote with the Roku TVs. And that's going to be something we are probably going to add into the next year's model as this develops. Again, this is a relatively new opportunity, something we're monitoring very closely, and something we think can have a very big impact on a space that has really always tried to go after this in terms of direct commerce or monetizing viewers in this type of way. So stay tuned for that. I'll wrap by saying, thank you to Andrew Kim here. He was incredible. Working with him on this was so much fun. I think we had a great time modeling out this opportunity. And please stay tuned, for next year's refresh of the model. I'm already going to plug it a year in advance. It was only just released last week, but stay tuned. I think there's a lot of exciting things for this company. And there's a lot we didn't touch on in terms of, what is in the blog and in the model. And, I'll leave it at that because you're just going to have to, go check out both the blog and the model. But thank you so much for listening to this. We hope it helps. If you have any questions, you can reach out to either of us on Twitter. You can comment below in the YouTube clip. And if you're listening on the podcast, I think probably Twitter's your best shot of reaching us and asking us any questions. We're happy to help. We actually really encourage feedback. We want to hear criticism. We want to learn from everyone that's looked at the model, hear your thoughts, and really we have an open research ecosystem here at ARC, and so we're going to use that to incorporate and continue to look at this opportunity. So please, we definitely encourage constructive feedback. So yes, thank you everyone so much for listening. Andrew, thank you again, and we'll wrap here.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nick.
ARC believes that the information presented is accurate and was obtained from sources that ARC believes to be reliable. However, ARC does not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of any information, and such information may be subject to change without notice from ARC. Historical results are not indications of future results. Certain of the statements contained in this podcast may be statements of future expectations and other forward-looking statements that are based on ARC's current views and assumptions and involve known and unknown risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results, performance, or events to differ materially from those expressed or implied in such statements.